Nicole. Welcome to the Paradise Center for the Arts, a virtual artist talk. We are excited to have artist Melinda Wolf, Suzanne Kubak, Lonnie Broden here with us, and I'm Julie Fackler. I'm the executive director of the Paradise. I oversee the visual arts. I'm also one of the participating artists. I know a few of the artists were sad that they couldn't be here with us today. Maybe a few might join later, we'll see. And I just wanted to let you all know that we're recording this and this will be offered on our YouTube page, Facebook and website and things like that. I did some of the photography of the pieces. I am not the world's best photographer, so I always suggest coming seeing the work in person. Of course, that's the best way to see the work anyhow. Okay, Paradise Center for the Arts is located in downtown Faribault, 321 Central Avenue North, and our website is paradisecenterforthearts.org, and you can always find more information there. We're going to go to the next slide. Well, I guess I should say this is a photo of the Carlander Gallery, and Melinda and Suzanne currently have the two-person show in our Carlander Gallery, and everybody loves the work. This is a photo to show you their work together and how we hung this show together. We have rehearsals in the auditorium. Hopefully they won't get too out of control. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at Melinda's work first, and then we're going to look at Suzanne's work, and we're going to have the artists talk about the slides. And then at the end, we can do a Q&A. Does that work for everybody?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And I love this photo, these pieces, the colors, they just complement each other. And it's amazing how wonderful your work looks together. And Melinda, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe about this piece? Yeah. And I'm just gonna shut my door here.
All right. So I'm Melinda Wolf. I am an artist based out of White Bear Township, Minnesota. And I focus mainly on doing oil painting on wood, which is what we're seeing here. And then I also do wood jewelry, reclaimed wood jewelry. And then I've done stained glass and watercolors too in the past. But my focus these days is the oil painting on wood and then the reclaimed wood jewelry. So the painting you're seeing here is called Radiance Among the Trees. And it's oil paint on elm wood. And the wood is really important because I use the wood grain as inspiration for the painting. So for this painting in particular, all the background waves or lines actually follow the wood grain. So the wood grain is really unique and really beautiful, and it actually has that live edge shape to the top and the bottom of the painting. And I was inspired by
Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. So I usually paint mostly in cool colors, and I tried to really push myself to do more of a warmer palette on this one, just to see if I could do it. I still love using teals and blues, so I did incorporate that in there, but it kind of adds to the warmth of the painting, which I think is really a little bit more unique than just all warm colors. The trees that I painted on top actually follow part of the wood that you can't see anymore because I painted over it, but there were all these little like branches that were not poking out, but you could see the silhouette of the branches. And so I wanted to incorporate those little branches and made them into actual trees. And then there's actually like a kind of a gash or an imperfection right towards the middle left of the painting, and I used that to incorporate some of the branches of those trees too. So it's kind of hidden unless you walk up closely, then you can kind of see it a little bit better. Is that good for the description?
Yeah, and this piece is sold, correct?
It did, yes. Yeah, it sold to a family friend who's become quite a collector of mine. So it's very exciting. It'll be in their cabin.
Wow.
Up north.
Congratulations.
Thank you. All right, and then these are my cute little mushrooms. I paint, when I do the mushrooms, I don't follow any rules of mushroom art. I do it more with my inspiration and use my own colors, but you can still tell that it's a mushroom. It's not an actual scientific mushroom that I'm painting. Um, and the top one there is oil on ash wood. And the ash is really unique because you can see some of the bark. And if you zoom in closely, you can actually see that there's still moss on that bark, which is really cool. And then what I've done is I've added in the mushrooms and it looks like it's kind of growing out of the bark. And it almost looks like you can, like it's a 3D where it's popping out. And then in the background, you can see the wood grain of the ash. And you can't tell, but I actually painted part of that to highlight it a little bit more and make it more visible. And then the bottom two are on walnut wood, which is really unique in that darker wood or darker brown color is actually part of the inside of the tree trunk of the slice of wood. So again, trying to make it look like it's growing from the piece of wood and making it I don't know, full circle. My goal when I paint is to try to combine Mother Nature's beauty with my creativity and make it seamless so you can't tell where one starts and the other ends. And so throughout all of my work, that's kind of the theme, is to take that beautiful wood and to highlight it in a different way that you would normally not look at a piece of wood that way. All right. Oh, and this one's called Sunset Serenade Over the Lake. And the sun is actually a knot in the wood. And I painted it so it's kind of the main focal point. And then I used the blues and the oranges and yellows. All of those lines follow the wood grain, which, I mean, the wood is just so cool and unique. And then I created a horizon line to make it look like there's a lake, and tried to, put them like mountains or hills and then have that reflected into the lake part. And then there's a weird imperfection in the top part where it kind of dips but that wood grain still follows that unique little imperfection. So again, it's a live edge where there's not going to be another piece of wood just like this ever. So which is really unique. And then the nests. So the nests, I call this whole series, whenever I paint nests and eggs, I call them as new beginnings. And the new beginnings kind of signify feelings and thoughts associated with new beginnings and change. And so a lot of the titles will work with that theme, like ambition, anticipation, joyful, adapt, trust, possibilities, and empowerment. So all of those feelings and words are associated with things that happen with new beginnings, whether it's change that you want to happen in your life or change that sometimes is forced into you. There's different ways to look at these new things that are about to grow and to become alive. And for this series, I've used birch, and the one on the left, the single one, actually has a little bit of the birch like bark kind of falling off of it, which is really fun. So I use birch, elm, and walnut for these. And they have the bark all the way around them, which is really cool to see just how a log or how a branch, once you slice it, what it looks like inside. And then with those little nests, they're just so sweet, and they bring me a lot of joy when I paint them. All right, I think these are my last ones here. And these are called butterfly burls. There's the purple one and the teal one. And burls are really unique within trees because there's no such thing as two burls that are alike. So burls are what trees create when they're trying to heal themselves from like fungus or some sort of infection. And so they kind of create this like bulbous section out of the trunk that almost looks like a wart. If you see it, you'll start to notice them more. They're really cool. they're really prized with like wood turners because they have such unique wood grain inside that burl. Um, and so these two butterflies, I did not shape those butterfly wings. That was Mother Nature shaping that. And when I saw these two pieces of wood, um, I was like, these are butterflies. And my husband's like, okay, sure. Like, and so I just saw like the kind of the side angle of a butterfly, and the two wings. And so the organic edges are what Mother Nature created. And then following the wood grain are the lines within the butterflies follow the wood grain. And then I added my little imagination with the colors and the other lines and dots and swirls. So I think that's kind of that's probably a good representation of my work. But it is all unique. Every piece of wood is different from the next, so there's not going to be any two that are the same.
And I think a lot of people question was, where do you get your wood from?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I try to find sustainable wood to use for my paintings. I use the majority of my wood that I get from a company called Wood from the Hood, and they're in Minneapolis. And they have a great mission because what they do is they partner with cities when cities have to cut down trees, and they take those trees and mill it into lumber rather than putting it in the wood chipper. It's saved and becoming rejuvenated in another way. So they have a lumber store that's open to the public, and you can go in and like it's like a kid in a candy store for me when I go in there just to see all the beautiful slabs of wood. A lot of woodworkers go in there to buy big slabs of wood for tables or other wood projects, but they also have more milled lumber too that you can purchase. So shout out to them because they're pretty awesome.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah.
How long have you been a professional artist?
Yeah, so I mean, maybe I can say my whole life, but full time, I've been doing art full time for 9 years. I went to school for studio art and graduated from the College at St. Benedict with a degree in studio art. And I've had many different careers within the arts, pottery, stained glass, wholesale jewelry company, and then now I focus primarily with jewelry and painting. I've been doing the oil painting for about 4 years now, so it's still relatively new, but I mean, it brings me so much joy when I paint that I'm just gonna keep going with it.
Well, congratulations and thank you, Melinda. And like I said, it's really better to come see the work in person. Her work is very unique. And she's partnered with Suzanne. And Suzanne, we're going to talk about your work. Can you tell us about yourself and about this piece?
Hi, thank you. First of all, just thank you for the opportunity to join the show. Melinda and I, people won't believe when they see the show that Melinda and I did not in any way coordinate the work that's so beautifully speaks to each other. And we had one other experience like this earlier this year at the Landscape Arboretum, where we similarly brought work in and it harmonized so well. We intermingled how we curated. And so it's been amazing to work with her. And I actually love following her and describing creative process because in a way there's a similarity I'm painting in acrylic and also on wood. I'm painting on birchwood panels. And the reason for that with me is because I do a lot of sanding in and scratching to find some of my mark making. And so the wood provides a really sturdy surface to tolerate that abuse. But just as Melinda is sort of doing, I call it a call and response. You know, her first call is what the wood itself is bringing to the story and the wood grains. What I'm doing when I'm starting a painting is I just start with kind of messing around with play. And if I put a big shape, I'll put a little shape over here. If I put a dark shape, I'll put a light shape over here. And I just start building kind of a story of differences in different ways. And I oftentimes will start with a palette of colors I've decided I want to mess around with, but I'll play for quite a while before I stop and see in the glorious mess I've made what the story that's emerging is. And so with this piece, people often ask me if I have any intentions when I start a painting, you know, if I'm trying to create a certain sort of thing. And it's this painting, when I started, I had in mind that I wanted to create at the scale. This painting is 28 inches by 28, and it's in the gallery. You'll see it framed in basswood. But when I painted it, I wanted to create some lovely, quiet, sort of minimalist, serene thing that I've done in smaller scales, and I wanted to try that scaled up. And this is what happened. and that's sort of a little bit of the way my style works, is that once a painting starts to take on its own life, you know, partly through that process of play, I'm finding I'm just responding to what it's bringing, what story is emerging. And the longer I paint, the less I seem to be able to control where it wants to go. And one of the ways I know that I'm nearing completion of a painting is a song will start to replay in my head. And so I often borrow my titles from song lyrics. This painting is called Go Your Own Way, because I was starting to just amuse myself with how much this painting diverged from where I thought we would start the story.
And in the galleries, you have stories next to each painting?
Oh, that's correct. Yes. Another just fun fact about me is I have most of my creative adult life, I have considered my lead area of creativity writing. And I was messing around with a novel when a friend of mine said, you know, there's this free online painting course and you should really take it. I've always been creative, but I would have never called myself a visual artist up until a few years ago. And so I jumped into this course, but I still really love to, and from there, I just was off and running. I paint almost every day. I really love it. But I also still really love to write. And so I write small stories, or like you might call them microblogs, about every painting. And when I'm lucky, a gallery will also show those in collaboration with the work. But I do also share those on social media as I post the work. And I am thrilled you included this little one, because this and its mate together are called Long Walk in Dappled Woods. And this was a piece I did maybe 6 or 8 months after I started painting, so very early in my process. And what it really brings to light is that process I talked about sanding and scratching in to find marks. This piece is heavy, heavy, heavy with that. It was actually, I learned to paint on these little birch 12 by 12 inch panels that are about 1/4 inch thick. And this piece was heavy with layers without really any intention, because I used it over and over again for assignments in my first acrylic painting workshop. And so I had this board thick with paint, sanded it smooth, and then started again to find a more cohesive story. And so part of what's amazing about this piece is how many layers of color support the top layer, and how many happy little surprises you find when you get up close to it and look into all those layers. But you'll see the top layer is very, very thin. In fact, at that time, I was using a method of laying on a shape and then kind of wiping them off, mostly to just leave almost a shadow of a shape in it. Yeah, so this was this really shows the technique of sanding and scraping. That is the reason I mostly paint on wood. And then these three lovelies, another question, you know, as I started to paint big, these are called Purple Rain. And each of those boards is 10 inches by 40 inches, and they sit about 2 inches off the wall. Any one of them could be sold as a standalone piece, but they sure look great as a set. And I love these kinds of sets of paintings. Melinda offers a lot of these too, because they become infinitely flexible for a collector in terms of, you know, sometimes you buy a great big painting and then you move and you don't have the similar wall space for it. So I love to play around with these unique sizes of pieces. But creating this piece is a great illustration of what I'm talking about in terms of building layers. Easily 20, 30 layers of paint in this, easily. And many people are surprised when I show the early underlayer. Almost all of these boards are thick with Caribbean blue. And the nature of acrylic paint, especially in those quiet, whiter areas, is that even though you don't see, if you really look close, you'll find some pops of that blue, but it still helps support the story in the whites and brings an iridescence to it that wouldn't be there if that paint was underneath. The other color in here that's surprising is there's a ferny dark green that mingles in with those golds and makes the purple, the deep purple color, all that more regal. So yeah, these are called Purple Rains. with a nod to our great Prince, right? A little bold for a Minnesota girl to pick that name. This piece is called The Color of Water. It's also framed in the show in the gallery, and it is on a 28 by 28 inch birch panel. Here, what I was doing really was exactly what the name suggests. I was playing around with a study of we who are lucky enough to live in this glorious state spend our days maneuvering around lakes, and I've just gotten fascinated by just how many colors in both lakes and skies. And then when you have one of those days that the sky reflects in the lake, the colors that you see in a lake. And so I just wanted to kind of mess around with that. And at this time of year, lakes are thick with algae, so you'll see some of that. And so really that's the story here. And then the only other thing is I'm not trying to be realistic when I create this painting, and we'll talk about that in the next one too a little bit. I'm really, what my eye is looking for is shapes, and then I'm creating shapes. I'm really not trying to focus in on deep detail so much as, so you might say these are more impressionistic than they are trying to be realistic in their renderings. And this is about as close to a realistic scene as I think I ever want to get. My goal is actually to become more abstract in the way I tackle a scene like this, but it really was a study of the color of water. This painting is 2 feet by 3 feet is the size of it. And and again, like the last piece, it really is very abstract. When you get up close to any of the shapes, there's nothing here that's aiming to be in any way precise or realistic. When you look at it as a full composition, you see a clear scene, and then if you take it apart, there's actually 3 paintings within this. That center, if you look at what kind of suggests a mountain range in the background, there's ways to dissect this, and that's, I think, what keeps it to a really interesting piece. But I think my favorite element here is that when you get up close to those trees, there's so much mystery and what's going on in the details. And again, I wasn't trying to render anything in particular other than there's so much color in there, just as you might see if you were walking through a dark forest and how your eye would blur. And so that's mainly the story here. Again, just thick with so many layers to create this really lush, because acrylic paint needs to be thick. It craves being thick in order to tell a story that's this lush. So again, easily 20-30 layers of paint in this creation. And it's called That Kind of September.
Wonderful. And like I said, I would suggest coming here in person because the textures on your pieces are very interesting, and you can see more of that scratching and that layering when you get up and close and personal with them.
Another detail quickly on this one that's really fun to make sure you see is that if you walk, kind of like you would with the Mona Lisa painting, if you walk around the lake feature, that water feature, I used a quality of paint that's called interferon. It's a golden product, and it's created so that it has the sheen of it changes color when you look at it from different light angles. And so if you look at it from the side, the water shimmers in a really beautiful way. So that's a really cool little subtle detail that I usually need to show people, because if you just take it straight on, you won't necessarily pick that up.
Wow. And I can't believe, so Melinda and Susan, you're both newer to the art forms you're showing here. I mean, it's not been 10, 20 years, but you said just several years?
Yep, I started painting early in February 2022, and I'm self-taught, and then I don't have the degrees and the formal education Melinda has. I have benefited mightily from workshops, and particularly an artist community called Art to Life, that includes an online forum where I can post, and this piece actually benefited from some feedback from artists all over the world. I posted it and asked for feedback, and people gave me, there was some discussion about the color of the sky, and should I, if I were trying to be more realistic, that sky would have a gradation in color. I liked the blue and I wanted that to be an abstract element, so I left it as it was. But it's a forum where I can talk about all those things and make those kinds of decisions. And so you can't, I've been fortunate in 2 ways. I paint almost every day. And also that kind of feedback from other artists, you know, if I were just kind of messing around by myself in my studio, it would take me 10 years to learn some of those kinds of things. And so learning in an artist community, you just can't beat it. You just can't beat having that kind of support and feedback around you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to the next slide. We've got Lonnie, and she is in the Lois Varanish Boardroom Gallery. And Lonnie has a very unique style also. I have heard several times by visitors saying, I love all the work this time. I don't think they're saying that they usually don't, but they are very excited about all of you. Okay, we'll go.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. Years and years ago, I began as a painter, and I did get a degree in fine art from the University of Minnesota, and then moved on to a typing career, and kept up my painting career for years and years and years. And finally, I moved back to Minneapolis, St. Paul, and found a job at the Science Museum. And I made the transition from old-fashioned key lining and so on, and to the digital world. And so I really became interested in using digital photography and the digital aspect of the paintings to create artwork. And so you see here, this is one day I came down to Faribault because I thought there'd be a really interesting place to paint. So we looked around for a while, and I found this big park. It's called Alexander, and this is the south side of it. And it has two big trees there. It's the Cannon River, and there are ducks around it. Nothing inspires me more than a landscape like this one. So you can see.
Oh, you're muted, Lonnie, for some reason. Somehow your phone muted you. I'm not sure what happened.
Okay, can you
There
hear me
you
now?
go. Yeah,
Okay.
there you go. Thank you.
All right, so I spent 3 hours about painting that painting, and then when I got home, I took a photograph of the painting and downloaded that along with several pictures that I took with different lenses, and blended the painted image with the photograph in Photoshop, and sometimes I use other programs as well. But this particular one, you can see the painted image in the background. It's very light, but it is in the bottom layer of Photoshop. And then I layer on top of it a nearly matching photograph of the same image, but it's not going to have the same things. So I go around and take pictures of things that are occurring at the same time, like the ducks and some of the grasses close up and some of the shadows and so on. And with a larger lens, then I can place those in. And sometimes I allow the painted image to come through more prominently by just cutting out a piece of the painting and layering it on top. Or a piece of the photograph that really works very well, I cut that out and clarify or enhance a certain area, like details in the grass, details in the water, some of the ducks and so on. And then when I get it to the point where I really like the look of it, over time, and I then print at least a couple of prints in different sizes. And I established an edition of 150 of them. And then I take one for a show like this, and this is the first print. And the frame on it is interesting. It's done by my brother who chip carves basswood frames. So I have the frames made for him. He's a disabled person and lives in a group home in Esco, Minnesota, up by Duluth. And he is just marvelous at designing and chip carving the frames. And so I use his frames for many of my pieces. And so this one is brand new. I haven't shown it any place but here. So, that's that one.
We're happy that you did a local theme.
Oh, I'm inspired by local views, and I always want to capture as much as I can in photography and painting. This one is, of course, the Split Rock Lighthouse, one of my very most popular prints. I have the painting. I sold that years ago, but the print lives on. And so you can see in this case, the background image is the painted image, and that shows off the colors, the reds, the oranges, the greens, and then the rocks are, not as colorful, but I make them so by using colors in the painting. And then when I overlay the photograph and change the transparency on it, then you can see the color through the photograph, but you can also see the image. So then there are certain elements in the picture that I want to bring out, like some of the details in the rocks are very important. They're colorful, they're beautiful, and the splash in the water, which is difficult to get in painting. And for me, it's important. I like representational painting. It's important to me to capture as much as I can of the environment, the mood, the tone, the color, everything, the season, and sometimes your own mood. And so I want to get that by a combination of photographs and painting. And I always have like a centerpiece because the prints themselves are very complex, little details that you can see, kind of miniature abstractions. So you need almost something to stabilize the whole thing. And for this particular one, it's the split rock with the lighthouse on top. This one is Red Wing, and I love to paint boathouses just because they're always on water, and water is so fun to paint, I think. You can see most of my stuff has water in it. So this was a day we went down in 2022, and I painted this view of that mountain in the background. Here's the Mississippi River going right through, and then the boathouse is on the right-hand side. I painted it, and I still have the painting. But for me, the print is an extension, both in how many of these I can have, and also in the extension of the art that I put into it. So I took photographs of a lot of different things, and you can look closely at this print, and you can find ducks in there. You can find rust on the buildings. You can find the profile of that big mountain in the back, or that cliff in the back. And then there's a tent, somebody's picnicking over there. There was a lot going on that day, and the beautiful bridge going across the river. And then a combination of colors that come through from the painting and the actual photographs that I want to have as clear as possible. This one actually resides in one of the state office buildings on the St. Paul campus. Okay, this is one of my very favorite and other people's favorite prints. In 2012, my husband and I usually take a trip every single year, at least 3 times, just painting trips up north, because there's so much to see there and so many options to paint. So this one is the Sugarloaf Cove, and it's on the North Shore, just north of Silver Bay. And so we went in there, and I found this lovely spot with these birch trees, sort of around October 10th or 11th, something like that. And so I stood there and painted these and photographed them. And when I got home, again, I did the layering process and produced this one. This goes back to 2012, and I've shown it many, many times, and it's in many local offices and in lots of people's homes. It's one of the favorites. And I've also done a winter version of this one. About 3 years ago, we went to the same location. I painted the same thing. And of course, because of the different season, it has completely different colors, different shapes, everything. And the snow was so deep that winter that we went on a trail. And if you stepped off the trail, you would be up to your hip in snow. So I set up my easel and I squeezed out my paint. It happened to be about 23 or 24 degrees. It wasn't really that bad. And I managed to get a pretty decent little painting. And so that one also is the same scene, and it's just different colors. This one is interesting. In 2018, we took a trip to South Africa with the Minnesota Orchestra. And there were 4 days allowed for safaris to go out and see the animals. So we went to Lion Sands with a group of about 12 people. And during the day, for those 4 days, we went out and looked at the animals, and I took several images. This is a particularly rare black rhinoceros with her baby. And so I got several shots of her. But I wanted to have the background in which she was residing when we took the pictures. So I went back with a guide and a driver, and we went to the same location, and I painted the background image. And then when I got home, I was able to put the whole works together. And there were a lot of exciting experiences on that trip. And I think it was the trip of a lifetime, I must say. This was one of the animal pieces. I have 4 animal pieces, and I have a couple of pieces of the concerts that the orchestra did, and they are absolutely magic. Naturally, I couldn't stand and paint those, but I could draw them. So between Johannesburg and Amsterdam, I drew several of those experiences and put them into prints. So I should say that I have always loved painting, and I want to capture as much as I can from as many of the scenes and experiences that I have. These are largely visual journals that I have, and I have literally hundreds of them. So thanks for the opportunity, Julie. I have so much enjoyed being there.
Oh, wonderful. We've enjoyed having your work. And it just dawned on me, you all 3 are painters, actually. Even though Lonnie's work is archival prints, there's a painting process. Melinda's got a different painting process, and so does Suzanne. It's always amazing to me how people can have different processes and different ways of doing things. And Lonnie was a part of the Healing Arts Gallery during COVID, and I kind of understood her process, but not really until I saw the South Alexander painting next to the South Alexander print. Did it really make sense to me? So thank you, Lonnie. We're going to go on meet or see some of the other art. I don't believe the artists are with us, so I'll just do I'll inform you about their work. This is our K&M gallery. We have some creative aging classes, artwork from the classes, and then we have a few pottery artists. We have Rebecca Tolley. She taught us a creative aging class, and that was cold wax and oil painting. She's got a very unique style where she uses cold wax. And I think Suzanne, I don't know if you got to meet her, but it's a lot of, I think, too, layering and scraping off and layering and scraping off. And this piece, Roots Run Deep, there's even some collage, looks like some collage elements with it. This is Pink Coming Through. This is a Rebecca Tolley, and everybody who took her class just loved it. And we were so lucky to have her teaching here at the Paradise. This is one of her students' artwork. This is Gail Thompson. This is called Spring, and this is cold wax on oil on a cradled board. Gail just loved the class. Gail has taken some painting classes here at the Paradise before. And I was personally very impressed with Gail's work. Judy Say Willis also did a creative aging class, and I guess I should explain a creative aging class is for students 45 and older. And we were following a process to have these classes done. There was social interaction added. The classes were multiple times, and the students were building on the skills that they learned throughout the classes. This was Judy's class, and it was called Riverbend Bounty. They actually went to the Riverbend Nature Center and extracted dye and materials from the plants at Riverbend. They did get special permission to do that. You just can't go up there and pick plants or take things home with you. So they did get special permission from Riverbend to do this. You can see a spiral bound notebooks. Those are eco prints. And those notebooks held some of the information that they learned from the class. There is ink on the bottom shelf, and I believe the right is marigold. I'm sorry, I can't remember what the left is, and maybe buckthorn. And then you can see they dyed a tote bag, they dyed some fabric, and they dyed a bunch of different, used a bunch of different materials to dye the fabrics. And I was surprised at the variation in color that they got. And the creative agent classes were made possible by a grant from the Minnesota State Arts Board. You can kind of get a closer look. The book on the left that I believe is Carissa's book. And Judy has done a lot with natural dyeing. And she is part of the Rice County indigo growers. They do a big grow a big batch of indigo every summer here in Rice County. The book on the left, I believe, is Paul Swanson. That's my partner. I was so excited that he could take this class with Judy. The book on the right is by Teresa Harzma. Teresa is a bookmaking artist, and she almost always uses recycled, reused items in her work. And Teresa has taught for us before the Paradise, and she's good friends with Judy. So I was happy that Teresa could take this class. And so that's her book on the right that I believe she used the natural dyes to create the image. And Judy Say Willis and Teresa Harzma are working on a final project that will be displayed at Riverbend Nature Center. This is Tammy Ressler. Tammy is a pottery artist. She is also the head of the Straight River Art Festival with Jessica Prill. She's the head of the Studio Art Tour, and she teaches at Shattuck St. Mary's. She did a placemaking public art piece a couple of years ago now. And what she did is she made tiles, and she was researching what businesses were in the buildings in downtown, I think at the turn of the century. So this is a dressmaker's shop. And this is a bigger piece. This was more of the public art pieces that she was displaying in downtown Faribault. There is a piece that is on the building on Highway 60 in Central, and you can come and see that in person. Again, I took the photos and it was hard not to get this glare. I highly recommend seeing the work in person. Tammy does a lot of raku firings, and that is a process of using a raku clay. You create the piece, you bisque fire it, you glaze it, and these glazes you see in the photo here are raku glazes. A lot of those are shiny and have lots of different elements, and the colors depend on the oxygen and how much the lack of oxygen. There's all kinds of variations. And the raku firing is done outside, and that's a propane heat source. This is Sue Leach. Sue is one of our members here at the Paradise and frequents our pottery studio and also does the rock firings with us. These are all made out of white clay. She has been doing a lot of animals. We are trying to get her to teach us a class. Lots of fun work from Sue Leach. And Sue has been doing the rock firings with us. The two horses on the left are actually, they were done in the rock process, but they were not glazed. I think, well, the black mane and the eyes were glazed, but the charring kind of marks you see, that's done with horsehair. So she used horsehair on these pieces on the left. And so when the pieces come out, they're really hot, and then you get that horsehair near it, and carbon like sucks into the clay. The horse on the right is made out of white clay. Sue also does wheel throwing and has done a lot of bowls, and her stuff is very reasonable. If you're looking for gifts, come and see Sue. I am also one of the artists. I am a painter by trade, but I've taken my painting style and put it in clay, and I absolutely love the process. This one is a white clay. This is I think my angry chicken with the sunrise. I'm not a morning person, so maybe that's what's reflected in this piece. This is my Willie, a kitty of mine that I no longer have, but I only do animal portraits, and most of my animals are a lot of my models. And I just love the stars on this piece. And again, this one is white clay. I do love the raku process, and Paradise does 2 raku firings a year, and I have been lucky to do some raku firings with Tammy Ressler. Our Corey Lynn Krieger Memorial Gallery is very special. Corey Lynn Krieger was a student going to Stout, and unfortunately, her and some friends were in a plane crash outside of Faribault, and her family opened this gallery in her honor. And this gallery is always for 18 and under. Right now, we have Bethlehem Academy artwork in the Krieger Gallery, and this is a group show. Jason Hillersheim is their instructor. I was hoping he would be here today, but he is a very busy man. And we're just excited to have this opportunity for 18 and under and for young artists. This is Lauren Bittbender, and this is called Just Flowers. And it's very bright and very happy. And again, come and see the artwork in person. I did take these photos, and as you can see, the photos do need a little work. Sorry about that. Bethlehem Academy does have an Intarsia program, and this is an Intarsia piece, and that's taking different colors and pieces of wood and creating usually a recognizable image out of the wood. This is Lucas Karen, and this is Loons. This is Monica Wilder. Monica has been in the Krieger Gallery several times. She's a senior at BA, and she's also been on our stage here at the Paradise. She will be one of our interns next summer. And this is Rapunzel's Tower. This is Caitlin, I believe, I'm sorry, Caitlin, your name is behind our heads. I forgot about that when I did these slides. I'm sorry, I should have done the images smaller. This is actually painted on a book. So it's a very unique kind of canvas. This is Caitlin Sina. Sorry, Caitlin, I hope I'm saying your last name right. And this is Please Protect the Bees. So here we can open up to a Q&A if any of the artists have questions for the other artists.
I have a question for Melissa. Do you somehow prepare the wood before you paint on it?
Yes, good question. So when I get the wood, I will cut it down and then sand it and then sand some more. And if you're a woodworker, then you keep sanding it. Um, and then what I do is I do 2 layers of clear gesso. And that clear gesso is helpful because then I can still see the wood grain and use the wood grain as inspiration. And that also helps protect the oil painting from the wood too. And then after the paint, I use really thin layers of paint so you can still see the wood grain through it too. And then I'll finish it with a resin, or sorry, a varnish coating on top. So it's a clear coat varnish.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. And like I said, this is going to be recorded. Once I get it trimmed, I will send you guys the link. And again, I'll put that on YouTube, Facebook, and our website, and feel free to share that. And I would also like to thank the Minnesota State Arts Board for their support for our operating grant and all their support for everything we do. And any more questions for the artists? Any?
I enjoyed so much time chatting with everybody on site, so I feel like I've had a good drink.
And this is my favorite thing, is that this video can live on. And it's so fascinating to hear the process from you all. Like I said, you're all painters, but it's such different styles and such different processes. And it's so fun to see the work. And again, come and see the work in person. This show will be up through October 6th. We will take it down October 7th. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Have a great night, everybody.
Yes, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.